Abojo, wapsheshi dodem, aker minwa akerekwak dodem, nimki beneshe nene, minwa opusmo dunjaba, andishnakas, bekechwanang, minwa chibekwadong, minwa ager dunjaba. I'm fumbling through that. It's not a full introduction, but the spirits, I think, will do that, will know who I am. I'm fumbling through that introduction because the last time I was here, we talked about going to Africa and what my expectations were. And certainly, I had no expectations of being adopted into the Teso people, into the village of Agar and inducted into the Leopard Society and initiated into the conclave of elders of that community, but also then participating in the broader Teso governance. For example, the elected prime minister, the chosen prime minister, maybe by the king who is elected by the people, I'm not sure exactly, but he seriously said, I will inform His Majesty that we now have an elder in Canada. I went to Africa to Kenya specifically for two reasons. Um, one of which was to lift a kite and pray and do ceremony on September 9, 21, 25, which for reasons that I can go into today or on another occasion, through a series of signs, I had come convinced that 9/21/25 is the starting date of the calendar, the post-Mayan calendar, and I don't have another name for it. I'm sure there is, and I'll get it at some point, I believe, I would think. But that I was told by Dane Larson of the Cherokees that the new calendar, after 13 years between the end of the Mayan calendar and this one, would start in 2025. And then when I came to be guided to the idea or to come to know that 9/21/25 was when it was. So that is what I went there for. The second reason was to try to find the people who would come to Canada to do ceremony with Wendy Phillips, to when she was fulfilling her familial responsibility of lighting the eighth fire of a 2,800-year prophecy, of the prophecy sometimes most often known as the seven fire prophecy, but we are now in the time of the eighth fire. I didn't know where the village where I was going. All I knew was Mount Kenya, and I'd gotten a little bit of intelligence. I'd gotten Mary Odongo from a Kenyan woman to go and do some research in Nairobi, and she had met a cab driver who turned out to come from an Acarino family. So I, he found her, and I had a driver, not a formal cab driver, but I had a driver find me at the airport who also turned out to be from Acarino. I didn't know that till later, so we'll leave out what the Acarino is for a moment. All I knew was that I need to find these people and all, that they'd come to Canada. The first people I went to visit was in Moringa. I don't think I'm saying that quite right. That's very embarrassing, and they were a brother and sister rather, and he was 80 something, and they lived on the edge of a huge, deep, lovely valley, and that whereas all you could see was tea and coffee as far as you were growing, as far as you could see going into this valley, lush green. And the nephew of the son of the woman and the nephew of Benjamin said that, hey, jokingly with a wry smile, we have our own factory here. And what he was referring to is that the coffee and the tea got bought by a corporation, the corporation, for pittance, and was taken to the processing facility. So the first thing that came from this journey of going, look, did something, were my needs met or were fulfilled, was to come to say, we need to start, support the starting of a growers cooperative that processes tea and coffee and other agricultural products. And that idea is very much alive and is being developed. The man there said, you aren't going to find your answer. People don't expect people to open up right away, but keep going. You're sincere. He made a lot of nice things. The things he said to me are actually recorded on a phone, so we can get the precise words. And off we went. And then from there, we went to climb Mount Kenya in Nanyuki. And on September 21st, I climbed Mount Kenya with my pipe and backpack and a small mini bundle. And we went to a cave that the Mau Mau had occupied during the fight for decolonization or independence. And it turns out that the Mau Mau are very closely related to the Akarino. And the Akarino are a sect of Christianity that came about when the seers of Kikuyu of Mount Kenya went to the mountain about 100 years ago and came down back and saying they'd been instructed that they should start a sect of Christianity based in or without changing their traditional culture and traditions. And that it further turns out that the original Kikuyu was Jewish and that the people there traced their once again, there's this relationship between the people of Africa around Mount Kenya, going back to the Kush people or the Kushtic Jews from the Ethiopian Kush. So once again on this journey, I'm finding that the same resonance with the Garagaris village and it being people from Abrahamic tradition. And then others go on to say that the seers of Mount Kenya are the seers of Samuel from the Old Testament, and the Mount Kenya is actually Mount Zion. Not completely unexpected, nowhere in my wildest dreams. So then what we now have going on is a connection between Anishinaabe prophecy and Abrahamic tradition and Kikuyu prophecy. And I'm like, okay, still haven't found the people that know about Canada, however. So there we are. After I'd climbed the mountain and after I'd prayed, and we'd gone to see another Kikuyu village just outside Nanyuki, and they didn't know, but they wished us well, and they pushed us, suggested we go to another village, going back towards Nairobi from Nanyuki. And there was a cultural center at that, and we went the next day as we started to drive. There was a cultural center there, and there the executive director wasn't there, but she got me on the phone and she started talking. Who are you? What are you doing? Suspicious. And then something I said got through and says, I need you to come here right now. So Nairobi's probably a 3-hour drive from where we were. So dutifully we jumped in the car with my driver, Isaac Kanye. We get to meet this Leah Ndojo, and she was the executive director of the Tinga Cultural Center, but turns out to be a leader in the Kikuyu people around cultural revitalization. She was a master herbalist, and she had networks of other Kikuyu people. And as we sat with her and Isaac and told the story, we actually, sitting by the shore of this dam-made lake, this lake that was created by a dam on the river, we sat there on the shore and we talked, and I called Wendy in Canada, and from deducing the costume that the people had been wearing in 2000, Leah said the only people that dress like that are the Akarino. I think it's really cool to look at that in Indigenous culture, costume communicates a great deal. And it was because, not the story or the other spiritual parts, it was because Wendy could accurately describe the costume that we got to the Akarino. The Akarino were a religion of 1 million people or something, like a lot of people, And they, as I say, were the seers that are responsible for the war. They would do ceremonies in the caves, and then the Maun Lao would go out and fight the British.